Initiate launch. Happy St. Patrick's Day. It's Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm kind of wearing green. I mean, that's more blue than green. All right. I wore green when I went to the St. Patrick's Day parade in Springfield, which was a huge showing. Even after the pretty strong storms that blew through the area, it made for a pretty decent, little overcast St. Patrick's Day parade in Springfield. Hopefully you're able to take in some of the floats at a parade near you. If not, happy St. Patrick's Day. Interesting to learn some of the history of St. Patrick and all of that. It's not just about going out and watching floats and have politicians throw beads at you. It's also about St. Patrick, who spread Christianity in Ireland. So sometimes, you got to step back from the revelry and look at what the holidays we celebrate are really all about. All right, it's Monday. Tomorrow is going to be a big day with the legislature coming back in here in Illinois with Illinois in Focus. We obviously are going to take a close look at some of the stuff that could be coming up. This week's a big week because you got bill deadline week, and that means they've got to get certain bills out of committee to then get on the either Senate or House floor for passage, to then go to the opposite chamber for passage there. So we're really going to this week, I think, get a State Government 101. And I think it's important that we do this just so everybody better understands. I mean, your tax dollars go to fund this. So how exactly does state government go about operating? What kinds of bills do they end up passing? What are some of the priorities? So all of those things we'll take a look at this week. So stay tuned for that. Tons to tackle there. Everything from stuff impacting homeschoolers to stuff impacting firearms to stuff impacting who knows what's going to pop out of committee. So be sure to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell with us here. Each and every weekday morning we go live with the Center Square. But I also want to encourage you to go get the newsletter where you get your headlines. All right, thecentersquare.com. Click on through the Illinois headlines. You can click the newsletter, sign up for that, but you can also get the national headlines as well. Go to thecentersquare.com. Now, if you can't be with us each and every weekday morning here for the Center Square and Illinois in Focus, you can get the podcast where you get podcasts, so check that out, all right? But I really encourage you to check out the live stream here, because there's a quite a vibrant group who take part in the live chat each and every weekday morning, so you can go and join that as well. All right, tons to tackle. We'll be back with what's up in Washington, D.C. Friday came down to the deadline. They ended up passing a continuing resolution. Big victory for Republicans. Some Democrats split on whether they should have allowed the government to shut down or went ahead and gave Republicans this win. We'll review some of that. And then we'll talk about Governor J.B. Pritzker. Is he running again? Who else could possibly be throwing their hat into the ring for 2026? I know we just got done with an election, but here we are already talking about a 2026 election. So stay tuned. That's what's up here with Illinois in Focus Daily, each and every weekday morning here with the Center Square. Federal government shutdown averted mere hours before the headline. Is right there at thecentersquare.com. So they had a deadline upon them, and you can see that they went ahead and approved a continuing resolution. It's Illinois in focus, and we like to take time to look what's going on over in Washington, D.C., because those are your tax dollars, too. So we do this from time to time. We're going to be working in some of the conversations with the Center Square reporters from across the country, including in Washington, D.C., about how you're being impacted, even right here in Illinois, with what's going on in Congress. So let's check this out, because obviously there was an interesting split amongst Democrats in the Senate as to whether or not to give Republicans the continuing resolution that Republicans wanted to continue funding the government for a few more months while they put together a full fiscal year budget. Republicans control Congress right now. They control the White House. So Democrats are in the minority. But let's read from Therese Boudreau's story here at thecentersquare.com. Again, the headline is Government Shutdown Averted Mere Hours Before Deadline. Lawmakers have prevented a shutdown of the federal government by passing a 6-month funding stopgap bill, with the U.S. Senate voting 54 to 46 hours before that midnight deadline. The passage of the continuing resolution follows a nail-biter cloture vote Friday afternoon, where 9 Democrats and 1 independent ultimately voted for Republicans' continuing resolution, which needed 60 votes to advance to the final majority vote. Now, lawmakers then rejected 4 proposed amendments to the CR before proceeding to the final vote around 6 o'clock in the evening. Senator Rand Paul from Kentucky, a Republican, the only Republican to vote against the bill, while Senators Jeannie Sheehan and Angus King, an independent, were the only non-Republicans to support it. Now, President Donald Trump supported the measure. The continuing resolution will keep most government spending on autopilot through September 30th. That's the end of the existing fiscal year. Now, the bill makes some funding adjustments from the 2024 bill, including slashing $13 billion in non-defense spending, boosting defense spending by $6 billion, increasing WIC and CSFP nutritional programs spending by $500 million and $36 million, respectively. Other uses of your tax dollars include authorizing billions of dollars for U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement deportation efforts, veterans health care, and air traffic control safety priorities. Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid spending would remain unchanged. So you can see here, when it comes down to the actual passage of this bill and what exactly they put into it, a lot of lead up from the past week, you had Democrats saying that Trump and Musk are going to slash social safety net programs, but apparently Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid remaining unchanged in their spending. But that didn't stop all of the political back and forth, especially within the Democratic Party. You had a statement from U.S. Senator Dick Durbin, and I'll just read this to you, that he released on Friday when he was talking about the continuing resolution. He said that there's very little about this continuing resolution that I like, and there's even less I like about shutting down the government. Now, this is a crucial point here at Chuck Schumer, the Senate's minority leader, Democrat leader in the Senate, made, was if we shut the government down by not allowing this to go through, then the Trump administration will have even more powers to be able to limit funding here, fire people there, and so on. So that was the big concern with some of the Democrats that joined Republicans in supporting that. They didn't want Trump to have more power. So back to Durbin's comments here. He goes on to say that while Donald Trump and Elon Musk are taking a chainsaw to the federal government's workforce and illegally freezing federal funding, the last thing we need to do is the government to be plunging our country into further chaos and turmoil by shutting down the government. Again, more from Durbin's notes here. He says the Senate Democratic Caucus was unified on a clean 1-month CR that would have kept the government open and given Congress time to negotiate bipartisan legislation. But Durbin says he's disappointed that our Republican colleagues wouldn't join us in the effort. He says, I'll continue to fight against Donald Trump's reckless and, in many instances, illegal attempts to gut the federal government. He is testing our system of checks and balances like they haven't been tested in my lifetime. He says the fight continues. So that's Senator Durbin's take on the continuing resolution. Governor J.B. Pritzker, Illinois' Democratic governor, jumping into the fray as well, and he had a different take. So again, here is some of what Governor J.B. Pritzker put out on Friday about what he thought should happen here. So he says Republicans in Congress have abdicated their responsibility to critically evaluate the damage Donald Trump is doing to critical services the American people need. Democrats have the ability to force bipartisanship and bring the two sides together to make a budget that reflects priorities we all ought to share. America was founded on the concept of checks and balances, but Republicans in Congress have decided to bend their knee to Donald Trump, Elon Musk, and their cronies who seek to gut our government from the inside out. It is dangerous. Illinoisans know all too well what happens when Republicans are reckless and play politics with people's livelihood. Veterans will have trouble getting health care. Workers will lose jobs. When infrastructure projects grind to a halt, preschool will lose teachers, and parents will be left without child care. Make no mistake, Pritzker said, people will suffer the consequences of their negligence. He says Democrats have the power to stop the cession of power to Donald Trump and Elon Musk, and they should use it. I urge a no vote on the continuing resolution. You got to think to yourself how much politics is being played here. Now, this is a congressional conversation about the continuing resolution. That's like on a macro level. But if you look at it on a micro level, in Illinois, for instance, Republicans are in the super minority, where they have no say in the budget. There may be some, budgeteers that are Republicans that take part in conversations with the governor's office, but every year the Republicans in the super minority say that they are shut out of the budgeting process. So in Illinois, it's very partisan because you have a Democrat party that's controlling the legislature and every statewide constitutional office, like governor, for instance. That's the micro level. On the macro level in Washington, D.C., it's Republicans now that are in control, and Democrats are complaining that they're not part of the process. So when you look at these and you compare these two, especially Governor Pritzker getting involved in this debate, it's kind of fascinating. Just take a step back and look at this kind of through a political lens, so you can see how these things play out. And one thing that we also see in Illinois is since Democrats have a supermajority, they're going to be able to get a budget passed before the May 31st deadline in Illinois. They're going to be able to give cover to some Democrats who are in some competitive districts throughout the state because they have enough of a buffer from the 61 votes in the House that are needed to pass a budget with simple majorities by May 31st. And they have 78 Democrats. So you got to think that's a large number of Democrats that could be given a little bit of cover to not support the budget that's ultimately going to pass. Was that the same thing that happened in Washington, D.C.? Chuck Schumer coming out and saying, you know what, we're going to support this. I just need a handful of Democrats to join me. Senator Durbin was one of them that joined Schumer. So they got those Democrats together to pass that CR, giving the other Democrats cover to essentially distance themselves from that conversation. Just a couple of clips here from the Sunday morning shows. This is Senator Chris Murphy on Meet the Press talking about why he thinks that it was a bad idea for Democrats to support the continuing resolution.
Yes, it would have been a risk. I understand the decision that many of my Democratic colleagues made, but I think the American people want us to take risks right now in order to save our democracy.
So it's about saving the democracy, he says. Senator Whitehouse was also interviewed on the Sunday morning shows on ABC. He talked about how MAGA Republicans are the problem and DOJ is tearing the country apart.
With these MAGA extremists in charge, they don't necessarily want to come out of shutdown, just like Doge is doing, except with a veneer of legitimacy, with the authority of shutdown powers. So they were both extremely, extremely dangerous options. And my view is that as Democrats, we need to stop the intramural quarreling about who voted what way and get back to work saving our democracy.
So again, saving democracy is what they say is why they're standing up and being vocal against President Trump and Elon Musk. We'll see how this goes. But Trump was at the U.S. Department of Justice Friday, and he really laid out some of what he says is the reason why he got elected. I mean, keep in mind, there was an election. Trump got the popular vote, the Electoral College vote, Republicans took control of the U.S. House. Republicans took control of the U.S. Senate, all through an election. And here's the president laying out some of the things that he says was really why he got elected.
You know, one of the big media outlets said what we did was the most consequential election in the last 129 years. Well, if we do the job that we're all capable of doing, I think it's going to prove to be that and then some. And that's what we want to do. We have a real big shot at making this country so great, so great. What happened to our country was so sad. What they've done in 4 years to our country with the borders, with Afghanistan, the most embarrassing period of time, allowing the Russian situation, was never going to happen, with Ukraine, allowing October 7th to happen, would have never happened, because under me, Iran was totally broke. They had no money. They weren't giving any money to Hamas or Hezbollah. It was totally broke. But allowing inflation, look at what inflation's done to people, been so devastating. And now you see that, by the way, price of eggs is down 35% in the last week and a half. We're doing a good job. Brooke is doing a good job. Brooke Rollins and everybody. And inflation's down, interest rates are down, gasoline has come down to a level that we haven't seen in a long time. All things that we wanted to do, because then everything else is going to be coming down. We want it to come down. We want bacon to come down, and groceries, a term I used to use. It's sort of an old-fashioned term, but I used to use it on the campaign trail, those last 90 perfect, beautiful days. We just hit it. And I want to thank Susie. You have done a great job. Susie Wiles. Great job, Susie. A big magazine just named her the most powerful woman.
So there you go. There's Trump. Just a little bit of what he had to say at the U.S. Department of Justice. After, obviously, 2 months in office, the continued fight in Congress. They've got a bill that's going to fund border security, that's going to increase funds for defense, that's going to keep various social safety net programs funded where they were. The Republicans are going to come together with a new spending plan. We'll be watching it all. Obviously, you can get those headlines at thecentersquare.com. Sign up for that newsletter. And wake up with us here at Illinois in Focus Daily each and every weekday morning, right here on YouTube. Governor J.B. Pritzker running for president? Is he running for governor again to secure a third term? There's an interesting kind of couple of years here we're going to have, and we'll be watching it all with Illinois in Focus Daily. Good morning. I'm Greg Bishop. Thanks for being with us. And if you wake up with us live, you can join the chat room, but if you can't, you can get the podcast where you get podcasts. Just search Illinois in Focus. So, really, Governor J.B. Pritzker has been asked if he's running for president for years. I think it really started heating up when he ran for re-election in 2022. And everyone was thinking, is he gearing up to run for president in 2024 when he got reelected in 2022 to a second term? The questions continued on. Then you had the tumult of the Biden presidency, essentially ending with his announcement last year that he wasn't going to run for a second term. And then the speculation was, well, if Vice President Kamala Harris is going to be the presidential nominee, who's going to be the vice presidential nominee? And Governor Pritzker's name was in the mix. And he even acknowledged that he had talks with the Harris campaign. So there were questions if Governor Pritzker, who's a billionaire and could bring that money to the political game as he has in Illinois, and as he's done elsewhere throughout the country with various political action committees and such. I think he's the Big Ideas Political Action Committee. So a lot of eyes are on whether or not Governor Pritzker is going to run for president in 2028. But before we get there, is he going to run for governor for a third term in 2026? So you got to think, in the years ahead, we're going to have actually in the months ahead, because the 2026 election, believe it or not, started after the 2024 election ended. You already have a Republican who's thrown their name in the ring. We'll touch on that in a moment. But Governor Pritzker is very much somebody who continues to be asked by members of the media as to if he's going to run for president in 2028. But again, before that, you got to get through a 2026 election if he wants to get a third term as governor. Here's the governor from last week with the Illinois Education Association.
I'm not sure. I think you're asking me if I'm running for re-election, and I have not made a decision or an announcement about that. As you know, I promise you will be among the very first to know. Along with, yeah, exactly. I didn't want to leave you out or you out. And I'll just say, look, whatever it is that I'm doing a year from now, or whatever announcements get made over the next bunch of months, I will be in this fight. I will be in this fight. I have always been, as you know, an active, participant in issues that matter to me. And the Trump presidency is attacking virtually everything that I believe in. So whether I'm in office or I'm not in office, what office I am serving in, I will always be in this fight.
If you're in the tea leaves, that's a little different of an answer than you've had in the past.
Then what?
It sounds like you might not be running for re-election.
I'm flattered to be considered, that you would even mention that I'm, whether I'm running for re-election or that I'm running for some other office. But I think I've always said that I love the job. I still love the job. It's become harder, but frankly, taking on this challenge is meaningful. And so I'm in it now. I mean, whether I'm making an announcement about anything else is a different question, but I'm in this fight now, and I relish the idea that we collectively, and you heard it in this room, we can win. We can win. We just have to work together to get this message out across the country.
Right, can I ask just one more question?
Again, that's the governor last week being asked if he's running for governor or running for president, and he wouldn't really say. We'll find out more in the months ahead as to the trajectory the governor may take here. But others have already tossed their name in the ring, at least one, a Republican, Sheriff James Mendrick from DuPage County, and here's his campaign website. Sheriff Mendrick for governor, a lifelong Illinois resident. James Mendrick has dedicated his career to public safety and service with over 30 years in law enforcement. He's risen through the ranks to become sheriff of DuPage County, leading with innovation and common sense. So you can find out more. He says why he's running. He's pioneered rehabilitation programs that not only reduce crime, but also give individuals a second chance. His leadership is focused on strengthening communities while standing firm against policies that weaken law enforcement and put public safety at risk. You can read more about this, right? But obviously, things are going to start catching, fire here soon when it comes to all the speculation. And even some have speculated that you could see a run from others who are in the state legislature. This was a little bit of a speech that was given by State Representative Blaine Wilhauer last week in a debate back and forth about education and equity and excellence and which should be focused on, which should be priority. Should we focus on making sure kids can read and do math, or should we focus on money going to schools that don't have good outcomes? So here's just a little snippet of Republican State Representative Blaine Wilhauer critical of Democrats for not standing up at crucial times in our recent history. And let's hear it from Wilhauer.
Have a little bit more respect for you and those folks over there if during this whole quote-unquote pandemic where our tyrannical governor was shutting down every school, if you guys would have stepped up and done your job and done the right thing for kids then, but you didn't do it. You didn't do it because you're afraid of our tyrannical governor and you're afraid of the special interest groups that were punishing our kids and depriving them of a normal childhood, increasing suicide rates. Our education system is in shambles because of it.
So you had Will Hauer make that point of personal privilege last week. It's just one in a string of personal privileges that he's made speeches on the House floor in recent weeks where he's really hammered on Democrats and saying that they're not doing anything good for the states. And while Democrats stand up and criticize Trump about, prospects of tariffs increasing consumer costs or, tearing down the Department of Education and possibly withholding funds from special education programs, Will Hauer's gotten up and talked about, what are you guys doing? Your focus is on the wrong place. You've destroyed the state. So why don't we focus on lowering taxes in Illinois and growing the state? So interesting to hear some of these speeches that Will Hauer's made. So it made me think, at least, is Will Hauer looking to run for governor in 2026? And I asked him if he has any ambitions to run for governor in 2026. And he said, listen, this is a text exchange on record. I asked on record, what's your ambition for 2026? Do you look for running for governor? He said, listen, I don't know what I'm doing in 2026, but I do know this. He said, I'll be in the fight for working families because they have been failed by the political class from both parties. What I know for sure is J.B. Pritzker doesn't care about Illinoisans. He's focused on his make-believe presidential campaign. What we need is a candidate who will fight for working families, has the courage to fix this state, and won't cave to the woke mob. So that's what I got back from State Representative Blaine Willhauer when asking if he had ambitions to run for governor in 2026. We're just starting this. It's going to get pretty interesting in the months ahead, especially when we start seeing who's filing what kinds of campaign committees are starting up, and the like. So we could have a pretty crowded Republican field. We could possibly see some independents pop out. Are there going to be any Democrats that challenge Pritzker? We'll be watching that. It's right here with Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Wake up with us each and every weekday morning here, and get the podcast where you get podcasts. All right, short show for this St. Patrick's Day. Tomorrow, we're going to delve deep into a ton of legislation that could be flying out of committees at the Illinois State House, as Friday's the deadline to get bills out of committee. So there's just going to be a flurry of activity. We'll talk about homeschooling. We'll talk about firearms legislation. We'll talk about taxing policy. We'll talk about animals. All kinds of bills about animals. Like, for instance, one bill says you can't pull a cow's tail. So how far is all of this going to go? We'll be watching, and we'll get a clearer idea of the types of policies that legislators are looking to advance before the end of session. So join us tomorrow morning here with Illinois in Focus Daily. Get the headlines in your inbox each and every weekday morning. Go to thecentersquare.com. Get that newsletter. Register for it. It's free. And you could just pop your email open every morning and see some of the top headlines, not just from Illinois, but also from Washington, D.C., so you could stay plugged in and up to date. But don't forget, you could join us here on YouTube each and every weekday morning for Illinois in Focus Daily. Shout out to those in the chat room. Wow. Like seeing those concurrent viewers up, guys. That's awesome. But yeah, I mean, Tom, good morning. David, Doobie Lou, James, Duckman, Randall, Christopher, Kevin, Richard, Jack, Dave DeHunter, John, Morris, Brian, Chris Krug in the house, Doobie Lou, Bob Sneed, Andrew, Festus. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. You guys appreciate your interactions. Patriots from Warsaw. You've got others in the mix. Lori. Yeah, you guys, it humbles me. It really does, as to the support you guys have for this program, for what I do every day. But do go and get that newsletter. Also, feel free to make a contribution to the Center Square. We're a nonprofit newswire service, and it's driven by your generosity. So get over to thecentersquare.com, help us out there, get the newsletter, wake up with the podcasts, wake up with the live show. and let's keep going and watching what happens with your tax dollars. Have a great Monday. Happy St. Patrick's Day. We'll see you back here tomorrow morning.